Hello, everybody, and welcome to Firefly Chats, the show where we talk all things The Last of Us. I am your host, James T. Keegan, and today we are talking clickers and kisses because it's episode 2 of HBO's The Last of Us. So let me introduce my fabulous panel for the evening. First up, you know him as the Ginger Geordie Geek. I know him as my good friend, Peter. Peter, how's it going?
Heyo!
Heyo! How's
I'll
things,
get
man?
in there before you.
Damn it, I should have that as my intro. I never thought of it.
Oh no, I've copyrighted it now. That's mine. Yeah.
Well, I think the producers of Always Sunny will have a problem with that. Yeah. How are you keeping?
Not bad, mate. Not bad. Really looking forward to this. I'll not say yet, but I loved it. It was mint.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's
can't wait to talk about it.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. Next up, we have returning from last week as well, from sunny San Diego. It's Efren.
What is going on, The Last of Us Familia? Episode 2. I love this series. Can't wait to talk about it.
Awesome. I'm so happy seeing all this positivity, around something. It's nice and refreshing. Especially when something you love so much, Yeah. So thanks for joining. Next up, he is making his debut on this channel. We have Chris from Cole Collects. How's it going, man?
Hello. Very good, mate. How are yourself?
All good, man. Thanks for joining. You were quite active in the chat last week, dropping some knowledge bombs. So I thought it'd be good to get you on and get kind of your opinion on this in person.
I'm a massive fan of the games and so far massive fan of the show as well. So glad to be here.
Awesome, right? And last of us, but not least of us, it's Luke from Hydra Collectibles. How's it going, man?
Heyo!
Hey. How are we doing?
Yeah, I'm really good. Thanks for having me on. Really enjoyed this episode.
Yeah, no worries, and it's good to have you. So because you guys kind of weren't here last week, I just wanted to get your opinion on episode 1 and just kind of how familiar you are with the series in general. So Luke, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I've always known about this game and I've played it when I've been around at friends' houses. But I've never completed it, never followed the story. So all of this is very new to me, seeing it in the show. And I've heard really good things about how it compares to the game, and the changes that they've made are often for the better. But just from a typical zombie fan, I've loved zombies my entire life, long before The Walking Dead, long before they were cool. I love the old George Romero films and all the low budget stuff. And this, for me, is just absolutely phenomenal. This took me to a whole new place. It's been a long time coming that I've actually really wanted a show. Every week I'm like, yes, let's go watch The Last of Us.
Yeah.
But yeah, my main thought about it is, if this show was made back when the game first came out, I don't know if it would have been as good. And the reason why I say that is because we've all experienced the pandemic, and I think that's really elevated this for the casual fan.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think
so. I think people like me and people like you, I think we would have always loved it. But I think, for the cultural significance of what has happened with this, the way it's blown up in just 2 episodes, I think it's because people relate to it.
It's more believable. People are more believed, can buy into it more, can't they? I think.
Yeah. It's interesting because a lot of the kind of focus that this show has on the outbreak is original stuff. So I'm curious if maybe the pandemic did kind of influence that decision to focus on that area a bit. Right. But yeah, I definitely think it was relatable. Like the opening scenes that we've been getting so far, and the outbreak sequence as well. The kind of pre-outbreak build up. Chris, so what you have played some of the games in the series?
I've played the first game. I've not played the second game yet. The first game is one of my all-time favorite games. Just phenomenal, kind of story-wise and scenes and just the journey you go on. It was just amazing for me, the first game. So this episode, like the first episode, I was kind of dubious, kind of what can they do? What are they going to bring to the table?
Yeah.
But I think pretty much within 10 minutes, I was hooked. I thought they've nailed it with the cast and things. I was a bit dubious about some of the cast members, but again, straight away, as soon as they're on screen, it was kind of put to bed for me, and I was in.
Yeah. I, as a fan of the game, was somewhat skeptical about this show when they announced it. I thought it seemed a bit unnecessary to me. But kind of as time went on, castings and trailers started coming out and stuff, photos and such. I kind of felt like it was in the right place, and then since it started, I think it's more than justified its own existence. Yeah, definitely. So right. So before we go into the episode itself, there's been couple of kind of bits of news about the series. So sales for the game are up 322%, which is just insane, I think. And then this episode has a 22% jump from the first one, which is the biggest ever for a HBO series. So we're kind of in the midst of Last of Us mania at the moment, and I'm absolutely loving it. It's great to see the positivity and something that a franchise I feel has been, even though it's like a mammoth in the gaming industry, it's getting that kind of wider recognition, and something I'm really, really happy about. But there's sort of another bit of news that came out about it that I think is a bit unfortunate. So this man is named Bruce Straley. So he is actually the co-creator of The Last of Us. He was the game director on the original. And he directed a few games at Naughty Dog, like Uncharted 2, Uncharted 4. He left the company after that, so he didn't have any involvement in part 2. But he has kind of been talking a bit about how he was left out of the credits for the show, and hasn't gotten any compensation or anything. And I think it was interesting to bring up. There's a lot of comic book fans kind of here, and I think this is all too familiar a story in that industry. So it's curious to see what you kind of thought of this.
Have we not learned? Well, because this seems to happen every time something hits the big time. Exactly the same story comes out. Because I mean, Luke's the expert here, but Luke, didn't this happen with Walking Dead as well? In terms of the creators starting to kick off on, co-creator kicking off,
based on selling the rights to them being a partnership. I mean, this goes back even to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with Kevin Laird as well. Like, there's nothing new.
Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, and all that lot.
Bill Finger for Batman. It's a real shame, and I think he was absolutely essential to the creation of the series, but also like the game that this is based on, like this specific story. So I think it's really unfortunate, and I hope he gets his dues. It's interesting because I actually, when this came out, I was surprised because I thought I had seen his name in the credits, but I went back and checked, and it was just another Naughty Dog person, so I just kind of mixed them up. But yeah, it's unfortunate anyway. Efren, do you have any kind of a take on this?
So they just didn't put his name on the credits, correct?
Yeah.
How hard is it to do that? I mean, give the guy his credit. I mean, he was the co-creator of this game.
Yeah. So like Neil Druckmann, it was himself and Neil Druckmann, and Neil Druckmann has been heavily involved in the series. He's it's co-created by him, showrunner, and he's also directed this episode. So he's kind of been the spearhead creatively of The Last of Us, since Bruce Straley left. So it's unfortunate. Like, I think.
Does anyone know if he was involved at all with the series from the beginning, or they told him to leave, or
no? So he just left Naughty Dog, which is the company that made the Last of Us games. So he left after doing Uncharted 4, and then he just didn't have any involvement in the second game, and they just kind of, it seems like they forgot about him a bit.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Yeah, definitely unfortunate. But yeah, like I said, throughout history we've seen this in several different industries, and it's something that's not excluding in video games. So episode 2, we'll just go around the room and just kind of in a couple of sentences, are we yay or nay on this episode? Peter, we'll start with you.
Absolutely, yay. I absolutely loved this episode. I thought the pacing of it was brilliant. It kept us enthralled throughout the entire thing. I've not played the game, as I said last week, so I didn't know what to expect or anything. I'd seen this image doing the rounds of the clickers, but I loved everything about them. I loved the movement, the kind of the jerkiness of them. That I hadn't appreciated that I couldn't see, and they were kind of sound based. I just thought it was great, and I thought for an hour-long TV program, it really built the kind of the horror element, and it was genuinely quite scary when they were in the museum and they were being hunted by these things. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was a great episode.
Awesome. Efren?
At the very beginning, the first scenes when it had that, I forgot what country, Indonesia, I believe it was, I don't remember. But when they were in the cafe, I was going, am I watching the right show? Because then I realized they were showing the origin of how everything started, basically, which I really liked. I like the first half of it. I mean, I know they're still building the characters for us who don't know them. To me, it was just a little bit slow, but I knew it was going to kick up a notch. Even you told me just wait for the second episode, and and it did. I really enjoyed. After that, I was like, wow. I mean, these creatures, I had never really seen them before, and just their speed and ferocity. And I was like, what the heck? I mean, how do you kill these things? So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, awesome. Chris?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of it hammered it home to me that it was going to be something special. I think when this episode started, I can't remember, what was it, the library, when they opened the doors to the outside world?
Yeah.
For the first time. I think I mentioned before I went live, I was just kind of like, wow, it's like the game. It's the foliage and the buildings collapsed and things like that, and it was just like, that blew me away with the scenery when they first went out into the daylight and you seen the city. I thought that was amazing. And then the clickers, when you hear that noise, it's took me back to playing the first game again. When I first hear them, you're just like, oh shit, what's this? And the suspense and the tension was just like perfect. I mean, it was just a great episode. I think better than the first episode, obviously, but it's I'm really looking forward now to the next one if they've done this well with just 2 episodes.
Yeah. Okay. And Luke?
Yeah, so like I say, I really loved the first episode, and at the end of the first episode, I turned to my wife and I said, "Do you know what? That was really good, and yet we didn't see any of the infected, and that was okay." And then all of a sudden, this one starts, and they're everywhere, and I absolutely loved it.
Awesome. Yeah. For me, it's a quicker episode. I think definitely it's only 2/3 as long as last week's, and it's not as much of a story focused one. It's kind of more of an action one. But like clickers are the thing I kind of was most excited when the shows. I said no matter what like they do with the story or anything, if they get clickers right, I'm sold, and I think they absolutely nailed it. So yeah,
I think the other thing, James, I was just going to mention, I know we'll talk on it later on, but I think on last week's episode, Ben mentioned that he wasn't so keen on the relationship, or he hadn't warmed to the characters yet, particularly of Joel and I forget what's the young girl's name again?
Ellie.
Yeah. And you said something about the fact that in the games, that dialogue is kind of key and it's superb. I absolutely got that this episode. I loved the banter between them, the kind of the jokiness and the ribbon of each other. I thought it felt much better in this episode.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a healthy mix here of new dialogue and some recreations of scenes from the game. So we'll go scene by scene, but we'll start off, have a look at the chat and see who's here. So quack, we got StreamYard joining as always. How's it going? Peter holding down the chat. Ben, click, motherfucker.
Hey, watch your language.
Professional comics. Popping my cherry on James' channel. Hope you guys are well. And that we got Connie. Even lads, I haven't watched this, so just drop by to say hi and drop a like. Connie appeared last night on This Week Metropolis. It's a great interview, so strongly recommend checking that out. Cool. Yeah. So let's get started. So yeah, as Efren mentioned, we start off in Jakarta. So I sort of had that the first 2 episodes now I've been like, oh, this is interesting. Because not in the game at all. But Jakarta is actually mentioned in the first game when they're sitting and having breakfast. It's mentioned on the news, and Joel and Tommy are like, Jakarta, where is that, and everything. So we get kind of an explanation for why that is the case. So we see this woman sitting having breakfast, get some shots of the city, and these kind of officers walk in and grab her. And I think like it's amazing how like without saying much, the tension builds. I think the show has no matter what the context of the scene is, has done a good job of building tension. And we got a phenomenal performance from this lead actress. I did look up her name. I can't remember what it is, but she's quite a prominent Indonesian actress. The only kind of American movie or English speaking role I've seen her in is Eat, Pray, Love. She's in that. But yeah, Ibu Ratna. So she is a professor of mycology, which is the study of funguses, would it be fungi? Fungi, yeah. And they take her to kind of examine this this body, and I love the kind of look of terror on her face as soon as she's told that this is like a human sample. I think just again the suspense building here is great. Chris, what did you think of this, and sort of how these kind of episodes have been opening in general, like being such a deviation from the games?
I've not minded it. It's added to the story for me, so it's kind of, it obviously wasn't in the games, but it's a welcome change. The changes that they're making for me have been quite welcome. They've been good. So I really love this scene. I love the opening scene, and like you said, the tension of her finding out it's a human host, and then asking if it was a human bite and things like that. And just, she knows, you can see on her face that there's nothing they can do basically, and it's just like, yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, it's interesting because like in the games, it's not really definitively stated where the virus came from. I think it's not really important to that story because like Joel and Ellie don't know, so we don't really need to. So it's an interesting route for the show to take. Luke, you've said to me earlier today you're a big fan of how these episodes have been opening.
Yeah, so again, going back to the first episode, I thought that was some of the best piece of television I've ever seen, that opening scene back in the 60s, because you instantly know how this world works. That one explanation about how fungus could evolve and change, and you instantly know what these things are and what's coming. And then this, like I said, when I first came on tonight, this is very reminiscent of the whole COVID thing. These hazmat suits, laboratory settings, a new thing on the rise. This is all stuff that the general audience can now really relate to and get behind. And I think that's what horror always does really well, when they tap into the culture of the time. So yeah, I absolutely love these opening scenes, and I really do hope that we get more of them as the show carries on. It'd be a shame to stop now.
I suspect it's possible that every episode is going to open with a scene like this. It's sort of interesting because in the games there's not really this. The show is kind of going for this kind of body horror, like Cronenberg-esque thing with the fungus, like the way she takes it out in the bottom right here, and it's still moving and everything. It's really creepy. Peter, are you a fan of how like gross this kind of show gets sometimes?
Yeah, absolutely. But like I say, because I've got nothing to compare it to, I don't know what it's like in the game, but that to me looked really cool. I agree with Luke. I like the backwards and forwards in time, and for me, this is how long in the future is this since the outbreak?
It's 20 years.
20 years.
Jump ahead,
so we've got 20 years worth of story to keep jumping back to, I guess. This scene made me laugh, I have to say. I absolutely loved it. I loved the setup. I loved the horror. And the next slide, I just loved the delivery of that line when he asks her, what do we do about it? And she just bomb it.
Yeah, and an amazing, and like the cinematography in the show has been really phenomenal.
It was just superb.
Just the way it's slowly panning closer and closer, and sort of just makes you feel kind of anxious. But she mentions here that the bite occurred in a flour and grain factory, and how like flour is a perfect substrate for the molds and in flour. So this actually confirms a fan theory that kind of popped up over the last week, and I was going to do a slide on this anyway, and I was surprised the show confirmed it so quickly. But people have been suspecting that the virus was in the flour. So like Jakarta is home to one of the world's largest flour factories, I guess.
Yeah.
Or factories. And there's several points in the first episode where Joel or Sarah are offered like something with flour in it, and they just happen to turn it down. So, for example, in the breakfast scene, Sarah wants to do pancakes, but Joel doesn't like pancakes, so they have eggs instead. The neighbors offer Joel biscuits, and he sees the neighbor that is infected later on in the episode being kind of fed, and decides not to have them. Sarah's offered cookies when she goes over to do her homework, and she says no because they're raisin cookies. And then Joel forgets his birthday cake. So it's. I think I love these kind of little subtle foreshadowings, or hints, like, and it's cool that people kind of did pick up something on this over the last week.
You've been nosy.
Yeah, they've had some close calls. How's it going?
Just been nosy.
Little cameo.
The next one.
Bye.
Bye.
So
Every time.
she mentions that there's no vaccine, like it's not really possible to create a vaccine. So again, kind of emphasizes how important Ellie is in this world, that technically a vaccine shouldn't be possible. But yeah, like I said, it's not really confirmed in the game where the virus came from, but there's several pieces of like conflicting evidence for different causes, and one of them is like contaminated grains, crops. So like I suppose it does tie into something in the game. There was some on the show last week were kind of a bit skeptical about how the outbreak started. So does this kind of confirm for everybody? Everybody happy with this explanation? Efren?
Yeah, I'm okay with it, but I don't know. I just wanted to see who the very first person was that got infected for some reason. But yeah, I know how it started and everything, but I was like, wow, are they going to show the very first one? But they didn't, so it was okay. I did like the explanation though. It was okay.
It's entirely possible, I think, that we get a scene down the road with in that factory where we see that first bite or the first person to get infected.
There's 14 people missing, wasn't there, from that factory?
Yeah,
14 people missing.
Yeah, so I think we'll get something hopefully with showing the carnage in that factory initially. Hopefully that'll be quite cool.
Yeah, and I think the delivery of these lines were phenomenal. What do we do? Just bomb the city? Like that's all you can do.
And that's why I laughed, because it was she's such a I'm generalizing, sweet kind of older lady.
Yeah.
And bless her. And then all of a sudden it was, what should we do? Bomb them, kill everybody, just
Kill
kill
everybody.
them.
It was very World War Z, and I don't mean the movie. I mean the book. It was very much how you deal with this across the world, and different people have different ideas.
Yeah, just shows gravity. I love that, like as the tear kind of streams down her face, like just let me go see my family. It's over. So yeah, I think a phenomenal opening to the show. Peter, we mentioned the theme song last week, and everybody kind of on the panel said that it didn't really stick out to them. Did you kind of take note of it a bit more this week?
No, I didn't take note of the theme song, but what I took more note of, I think some of you said it was very Game of Thrones-esque, the kind of the spreading and stuff, and very Walking Dead-y, the kind of the different imagery they use. So I did enjoy that more this time, but it's maybe still early for me. It's not a theme tune that kind of trips off my tongue straight away, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but
it will do. I'm sure it will do. It's only 2 episodes in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's one of my favorites, and like I think it's Gustavo Santaolalla, I believe is the composer's name. Did like Children of Men, but I think it's one of the greatest soundtracks to any movie or show or video game ever. So like I'm a big fan of the music here. Luke, do you fan of the theme song?
Again, not so much the song, but the visuals. I really liked. I loved seeing the way that this all kind of like, well, for lack of a better word, spored out. It was really good. Yeah.
Right, so we start off with this shot of Ellie. Again, cinematography just excellent, like the way she's kind of so isolated here. Thought a cool visual gag is when she kind of wakes up, she just looks around, turns around, and the two of them are just standing there staring at her all night. Like that was kind of funny. And then we see her arm and kind of emphasize like she's fine, she's not going to turn. And then I thought this was another funny bit. Like she gets thrown the newspaper, and Joel says, like, is there anything bad back there? And Joel's like, just you. It just kind of shows how harsh he's being on her. And we got kind of a close up of his hand again. It's a hairline fracture, I think he said he has from beating the guy to death last episode. This was a nice looking sandwich, wasn't it? This like I did a double take when I saw this. I
mean, to be fair, I wouldn't mind an apocalypse if that's the kind of quality food you get, because I don't even get that now.
I know.
What I mean? Look at the quality of the bread. It's
fresh chicken, but that was again another funny. Luke, is the humor on the show? How do you feel about that? Because it's for such like a dire situation.
I think that's
there is good levity.
that's what makes good horror. Horror needs that comedic element to it, and you'll find that all the great all the great horror films or TV shows do. They need that little bit of lightheartedness. There's a number of jobs in the real world that are quite dark to actually have to live through and do, and you have to be upbeat about it. You have to still be human, and I think even when the world goes as bad as this, it's important to keep that.
Yeah, definitely. Like humor is a great part of the first game, but it's also a very dire world. Like the first game took me, I think, 2 months in like 4 different sittings because it's so like overbearingly dark. But I think that the comedy does a good job of lifting it up. I really love this shot. The way like Ellie's kind of in the light and Joel's in the darkness, and Tess is sort of just standing in between them. So again, kind of highlighting how good the cinematography is in this. Chris, what did you think of this show? Because it's not one that's in the game. Where Ellie's kind of doing the clicker impersonation. Did you feel like this is kind of in line with how Ellie kind of acts in the game?
Yeah. I think that's why I think she was a really good casting choice. Like I didn't initially, but the more I see her on screen, she was perfect for the role. I think, like the way she talks and acts and things. I think she's really good. I'm enjoying her as a good. She's a good actress. I think she's really good.
Yeah, I think so too. I was always fairly confident she's going to do a good job, but she's really impressing me in this. Yeah. And I feel like again the writing is so on point that like I could imagine Ellie in the game doing something like this. Yeah, definitely. So I thought that was a funny moment. Another good line: Ellie wants a gun, and she's like, "Okay, fine, I'll just throw a fucking sandwich at them." Classic. I don't think that's in the game, but it was a good one, I thought anyway. My first criticism of the show, I thought this looked a bit green screeny to me. Does anyone else kind of get that?
It did, but I think being a TV show, that's okay. Like we're used to it. I mean, after some of the stuff that we have been watching, it's especially on streaming services. I don't think it was awful. But yeah, I think you can let it slide for how good the rest of it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree with Luke. I mean, it is obviously green screen, but it wasn't. Some of the other shows we've watched, it's jarring. Do you know when you watch it, you kind of go, "Oh shit, that looks like bad." It didn't really even faze me. This particular one, I just thought, "Oh, that looks really cool."
Yeah.
It didn't bother me at all.
It was worth it, I think, even if it looked a bit effecty and green screeny, just to get that was the point when I went wow, because it was so close to what I remember from the games being like the atmosphere.
Yeah, because it is like it's pulled directly out of the game, like it's shot.
Yeah, I forgave it. I thought it was really good.
Yeah. Efren, did you feel like this was a bit green screeny, or kind of felt like it was in a studio?
No, I didn't at all. And if you guys think it is, maybe because it's a new series and, HBO, they're saying what kind of a hit it is. Maybe, season 2, they'll add more money into it, make it look a little bit more realistic. Because Game of Thrones, what was the second series called?
House of the Dragon.
House of Dragons. Those dragons look so real, man. It's like, man, they put a lot of money into that.
Well, it's funny you say that, Efren, because this is the second most expensive show of all time.
Yeah. But that shot there, James, looks really good. I
agree. When it moves to this, it's particularly the first shot where Ellie kind of walks in, like this one on the top right. I don't know if it's because it's in focus, where like if you watch like Marvel movies, once kind of you can tell they're in the studio because the background is just slightly out of focus. Same with like The Mandalorian and such, but I don't know. It just kind of stood out to me. It's like the first time I was a bit like, oh, that doesn't look quite right, but it's possible it's just like an uncanny kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something that stood out to me. Chris, did you feel like this shot was maybe a little homage to like the camera perspective in the games?
I know I've actually picked up on that a couple of times. Yeah, when I've been watching it, like thinking, it's just like kind of like a third person. Yeah,
exactly. I thought that had a little. Kind of
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, the way the camera's behind, following him, and that two characters kind of walking ahead of you is a really common thing in the games as well. So, absolutely love that one. This is a reference to Ellie mentioned super infected that explode fungus spores. So this is a reference to an enemy type in the game called bloaters. Their bloaters will be appearing later in the show, but I don't think they'll be doing the spores thing, considering it's not. They haven't. The producer said that there's no spores in the game, so that aspect has been taken away. But I just thought that was a little fun Easter egg. And then I love how this whole episode kind of the gravity that clickers are sort of treated with. You know, like anytime they're mentioned, or like Ellie has this little kind of. She's heard obviously of clickers, but like the way like Tess looks at Joel, like don't even tell her what these things are. I thought was great, you know. And again, the cinematography in this show has just been phenomenal so far.
It's amazing that in every city that we live in, if there's no infrastructure, nature comes back. Nature finds a way. And I was like, wow, this would really happen if, you know, like say there was no people left on Earth and everything, nature would just come back, you know. Just
yeah. I think that is what, because you know, The Walking Dead is brought up a lot when we're talking about this show, and it's something I think distinguishes it from The Walking Dead. Like that's not quite as much of a thing when 20 years has passed. You know, this is kind of there's this greenery all around and everything.
The History Channel done the really cool documentary series years ago called Life After People, and it's pretty much shows you what would happen if we all disappeared and what would how the
I think I've seen that too. Yeah,
it's really good. I mean, don't get me wrong, CGI is really bad in it, but as an educational piece, it's good.
Yeah, I have to check that one out, man.
So my wife had a very insightful comment on this particular scene. As they were walking through all of this, she said, I thought the whole point of the series was they were looking for an engine for a car. Are you telling us that there's no engines in any of these vehicles? And I just kind of said, it's 20 years, man. They've been nicked or moved. But I thought, well, actually, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, they're bringing part of it. I think is that they like made the deal to bring Ellie there. You know, the Fireflies could come after them if they don't, and also they know that she's immune. But yeah, I mean, it's the battery thing is like they want to find Tommy, so like this is kind of the most direct way of getting it, I suppose. But like they're not just going to leave Ellie on the side of the road and piss off to meet Tommy.
Okay, so since I'm a newbie to all this, where are they taking her exactly now?
Right, so they have to meet Fireflies at the State Building in Boston. So they're just going to like downtown Boston to meet them there to give Ellie over. Okay. So in exchange for a car battery, it's not just a battery, is it? It's a full truck and guns and everything. So they've been promised quite a big haul for this, you know. So that's probably how I'd explain it.
And Joe, real quick, Joel's brother Tommy, he's in the Fireflies, correct?
So he's a former Firefly, but we've only seen him in the beginning of the first, like the outbreak sequence that we've seen him in. He will be appearing later on. This is I love this like frog jumping along the piano and kind of playing the kind of ominous music. I thought that was kind of funny gag. I just saw right before we started filming. This was supposed to be a seagull, and there's like a guy in a blue screen holding onto the seagull and just wouldn't do it for them. So like they had to swap out to a frog. So I thought that was funny. But Ellie mentions that she can't swim, and this is like Chris, I'm sure you're more than familiar with this, a recurring thing in the games where
push her along things and carry her on things basically and get her.
Yeah. So Ellie has to, if you have to get Ellie across somewhere, you have to jump in the water and kind of go find like a palace or something to carry her over. And there's a lot of outcry from the fan base wanting a scene where Ellie jumps on some kind of floating thing and Joel pushes her. So I'm hoping.
I thought it was going to. You know, on the previous slide there with the food.
Yeah, it felt like that's what they were going. I was really excited about it. Yeah. So yeah, again, another kind of display of Ellie's humor here. You know, like she's kind of very bubbly personality. She's going and she's very playful. Luke, did this work for you? This kind of little joke?
I was terrified she was making too much noise. And the minute she went over and started ringing that bell, I was like, what are you doing? Like, get that girl on a leash.
Yeah.
I honestly, I thought there was going to be so much in that water. Like, but again, it's because I have no reference to the game or anything. I just know horror, and I expected to, and especially when we saw the skeletal corpse fall out, I thought, oh, that's the jump scare before the real scare.
Yeah. I can't remember. I don't think there's any moments in the where like infected jump out of water or anything like that. But I did kind of think the same thing myself. Yeah. So, but like again, the tension, this show, you're always kind of on the edge when you're watching, when you're in this world. Like, so again, another kind of little, like this is something a lot of adaptations really fail at, but like kind of referencing gameplay mechanics in the story. So like giving someone a boost up on a ledge is like another recurring kind of thing, and they go off and do something. So that's something you do constantly in the game. So I think that was a little like fun Easter egg as well. Chris, did you have a little smile when that happened?
So I'm the smallest one. He's like, no, because you're not going.
Yeah, it was a good one. We got this little lovely scene with and the first kind of proper conversation Joel and Ellie are having together, where they're kind of trying to make conversation, and Ellie talks about like, have you ever killed them? And we learn a bit about kind of Joel's kind of look on the world. Peter, were you a fan of this scene?
Yeah, I loved it. I loved the conversation between them, and it was kind of warm, and then she kind of pulled it back with snarky comments now and then, didn't she? So I thought it was really good, and I liked how she kind of was asking him about, didn't she ask him about the way he punched out the guy on the first episode?
She does, yeah. She asked that, and then she asked about like his test your girlfriend, and he refuses to answer, and things like that. Yeah, Chris, do you feel like the show so far has captured their kind of relation, like where the relationship is supposed to be at this point? Well,
yeah, I think it's leading. Obviously, when you're playing the games, it's a bit different because the kind of audio, a bit more dialogue, but the show's getting to a point now where it's showing these little hints of the way they are in the games and the relationship they have. You can see Joel warming to Ellie a bit more and kind of wanting to pull back because he knows he's doing that. He knows he's kind of warming to her.
Yeah.
But obviously he's lost his daughter, so he won't want to warm to her, I don't think. And that's kind of like a little battle going on. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. I think it's good getting these little hints of the relationship that they're going to have.
Yeah, I definitely think these two actors have a really great chemistry together, and are kind of nailing every scene that they have. Efren, you a fan of these two together?
Yeah, I like the way they're slowly getting to know each other and trust each other. I'm sure Joel, so bitter and hardened after what happened to his daughter, over 20 years ago. So he probably doesn't want to let anybody in, But yeah, I like the way it's going so far, and I like the girl Ellie. I was gonna say I like how they show like her point of view, like when she's seen the outside world for the first time, like a kid's awestruck. I like that. Like in the piano, she was doing all that stuff, but she's a kid.
Yeah, exactly.
She doesn't know any difference.
Yeah, Ellie's sort of curiosity is a really endearing kind of part of her, and it's a big part of her charm. So yeah, we have this amazing shot where you see all the infected, and the sun is kind of gleaming over them, and they're all kind of reacting. But we get like a new addition to the kind of lore here, where infected are like connected through kind of like strands of the fungus. So you can, like, if you kill one somewhere, a group on like another part, like a mile away, might react. This isn't a thing in the games at all. It's interesting because it does actually sound like a video game mechanic. Like, if you step on this thing, you will nourish everything in the area. But yeah, it's not a thing at all in the games. Chris, did you like this kind of addition?
Yeah, I'd heard about this previously watching the show though. Sadly,
nice. Okay.
Spoiler. I don't know why they didn't do the spores. Maybe it was an effects issue. I don't know. But it was a welcome change. I liked it. I think it brings something new to people who know kind of the game like ourselves, and it's like a whole new item, like for tension. It's a whole new builder for tension and things. I think so. It's quite good. I think it's good. It's going to be a good trigger for tension and for fear and for building up.
Yeah, I read somewhere online that they didn't. Like I said, I don't know about the video game or anything like that, but in the video game, they had spores and they were wearing like gas masks a lot. Correct? They didn't do that for the show because they wanted to show the actors and actresses' faces.
Pedro's probably sick of acting behind the mask. Because I can imagine that's why. But like, there's sort of an interesting like visual with spores in the game because Ellie doesn't need a mask, so I always thought that was quite a cool visual, like an instant kind of identifier that she's immune.
We might get spores later on. Then I mean, if they're not wanting them to wear masks all the time, they might. Do you know the bloaters you just mentioned?
Yeah.
Maybe they'll bring them in for now and then or something.
Well, Craig Mazin, who's one of the co-creators of the show, said that they might bring spores into season 2.
Okay.
So I think that kind of tells me that they're not going to do it at all. Yeah, which is a shame because I think it's a beautiful visual as well.
I mean, I don't know from the games, but if I was Ellie, I would still want to be wearing a mask just so that it didn't alert other people to what.
Yeah, that is
why
that is a thing at one point in one of the games where she puts on a mask to like pretend that she's not immune, and it like that's all I'll say about that. But yeah, no, you're bang on the money there, Luke. So yeah, go on.
I'm sorry, unless I heard something wrong in the first episode, didn't they say that when they said that she was immune? Didn't somebody say another one? And there's another person that was immune before.
No, Joel kind of references the fact that he's heard a whole like, oh, this is the key to the vaccine kind of story before. But to our knowledge in the games, Ellie's the only immune person in the world, basically. So yeah. So we get to the Boston Museum. Another great line I thought I was fair hand. Give me the gun. She just really wants that gun, you know. Yeah, congratulations. I just had a little giggle at that. We get to the museum.
Sorry, James. Just back a slide, if you don't mind, and one more.
Yep.
Again, the visuals of that, the spores spread all over the door and everything. That's what's setting this apart for me. It just looks different. It looks it almost reminds us of first time I saw Aliens, where they've kind of morphed into the walls and built on the walls. It's just, I think it's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, definitely unique among the genre. I think
There's Stranger Things done similar as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
All the vines and everything all around in the upside down.
Yeah.
But no, it's an amazing visual, I think, and part of the reason that people love the kind of aesthetic of the series so much. So we get into the museum. So this is also a location of the game, but something I never really thought about playing it, but I kind of popped into my mind here was how just kind of sad it is that like all these historical items are just like left in disrepair, you know. Yeah. But yeah, again, you see kind of fungus everywhere, and yeah, as I said, it's a location in the game.
You would think, actually, you say about all that stuff being left there, but you would think that if you lost everything for 20 years and you lost all the power grid and everything else, you would need the old museum stuff just to be able to do basics like farming. Like you'd have to go back to that technology, right?
Yeah.
People aren't meant to be out there, but other people are meant to be in
so
there's
a variety of dangers kind of out in the open world. So like, yeah. But
because you're right. Sorry, you're right, Luke. One of my first thoughts were if this was if we're comparing it again to Walking Dead, that place would have been looted by now, wouldn't it? You would have everything would have been stripped for whatever, you know.
Yeah. But it's because there's a quarantine zone so nearby, people just tend to boot it for that, which Joel mentions earlier, which is why there's so many infected in that kind of area, because it draws so many people in. So we see this kind of guy dead on the ground. Chris, I felt like to showcase like the damage that a clicker can do, they should have maybe gone a bit gorier here.
Yeah, because there was like, I've never seen them do this before, but I don't expect it to be worse.
Yeah, I thought his face should be gone, or like like it's unrecognizable as a person, you know. But I think it's still effective at doing like building that tension, like the look on Ellie's face. So great acting from Bella Ramsey here. And just the way when she turns around and says, like what happened, like Joel, the look on Joel's face of just like shit. You know, I thought it was really cool.
I mean, you say about the damage and stuff like that, and I know we get a reference to it later in the episode about you can still get ripped apart, but the whole idea of this, right, is that the fungus wants to spread to a new host. It needs to keep you alive, so it wants to do as minimal damage as possible. Like these infected don't eat you like a regular zombie does.
Yeah, I suppose like because. But then again, if this guy was bitten and affected, he'd be infected now instead of dead, you know. But yeah, in the games they just kind of claw at you. Like they don't even try and bite. Some of them do, but like they're biting as like a means of attack, not like trying to spread the virus or trying to eat you or anything. I love this line as well. I think this did a really good job of kind of, again, emphasizing the gravity of what they're kind of coming up against. Like not quiet, silent. Efren, you're not like really a big horror guy or a big kind of scary scene guy. Did you? How did you feel in this kind of moment? Were you getting a bit nervous at this point?
I've mentioned it before. When I used to watch The Walking Dead, it just made me nervous, like antsy, like anticipation. I'm starting to get the same feeling with this series. It just makes me nervous watching it, and I stop what I'm doing. Yeah. Especially towards this, there's this one scene that we're going to talk about. I just really stopped and I paused and I ran in reverse. What happened exactly? And I was like, okay, this is, it really catches my attention. A lot of times when I'm watching TV shows, like I'm multitasking, I'm doing other stuff. But for certain scenes so far, like I'm just sitting down and really paying attention. Plus, I know I'm going to go on your show, so I want to make sure I know everything.
Yeah. Luke, do you think this scene effectively kind of built the tension for you?
Yeah, it really did. And like I say, it's been a long time coming. I fell out of love with things like The Walking Dead after so many seasons, but this really did captivate me. Like this is on a whole different level, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, so they climb up the stairs, and Ellie kind of you have that kind of classic cliched moment of like someone making a noise, and it's like, oh, did they hear us? And then the kind of scaffolding falls, and it's like, oh shit. And then we have I love the way this is filmed. I love how it holds it for so long without giving a proper reveal. Like it's a couple minutes. Was your heart pounding in this kind of the sequence, Peter?
It was, but I was more just fascinated with the creature, because I loved the movement of it, the noises, it just felt very different to what we've seen previously on like The Walking Dead and things like that. I just loved it. You're right, the fact that we didn't get that kind of face shot straight away. It was sort of kind of moving around slowly, and you saw it through the glass, didn't you, and all that kind of stuff. I thought it was superb, and I think again, it's a great image. That face, it's a great look. I presume it's a practical special effect. It looks fantastic.
It is funny you say that. It's all completely practical. So it's even more impressive. Like, because it does look in some shots like it should be CG. Like you shouldn't be able to make something look that good. But yeah, I love how like the shh moment, and he kind of is miming to them. They can't see. Yeah, but obviously Ellie can't control herself. We get just the screamer moment. Visually, Efren, what did you kind of think of how the clickers look and just how they act and everything in general?
Well, you guys, I think, just answer one of my questions. They can see, because there was this one scene where he shines a flashlight right on his face. And it doesn't react at all, right? So did they just get around like bats, like radar?
Yeah, sort of sonar. Like they mostly react to noise. So like the fungus has kind of grown all over their eyes and they can't see. And mechanically, clickers in the game, I think, are, Chris, you might agree with this, like one of the most, like probably the most dangerous enemy you can face in it. If you die like 10, 15 times playing the game, I guarantee about half of them are from clickers. But yeah, you have to kind of sneak around them. If one of them grabs you, you're dead immediately unless you have a shiv. You can kind of stab it to kind of get away. You can't like melee attack them or anything, but like the sound design of them is just so incredible, and just the way they twitch, the way they move, it's very kind of unique in this genre,
that sound when you first see them, that sound, the click, it just took me right back to playing that game like 10 years ago, and I was like, oh shit.
yeah it's as iconic as it gets, I think, in terms of like video game enemies.
Go back to that last picture.
This one
is that Joel at the bottom right? That's not him.
On the bottom right. That's a game over scene. Efren, that's if you get attacked. So like so
Joel
died. I should no. Okay, so it's in gameplay. It's in gameplay.
That's the video game, Efren. That's the video game, not the show.
Okay.
Because you can jump off of you can jump off of a building and die. Like but like the most dangerous kind of enemy in the game. But like it's as if they walked off of the Blu-ray disc. You know, it's really
Okay.
incredible. I've never seen something so kind of accurately brought over, you know, translated from game to screen. So we get this kind of, you know, just the screaming, and we get this like action sequence where kind of Joel's scuffling with one, and you know, the way it's shot, so like these like quick cuts, I think really worked for it. When you get just these flashes of it, it's just absolutely terrifying. Peter, did the actual like action of this, like how they fight against them, did you think that was
Oh yeah,
well
I thought it was
done?
brilliant. I thought it was
Yeah.
brilliant. Yeah, and I think like we said in the last episode, it's refreshing that they're not kind of slow zombie type things. You know, it was very kinetic. It was jumping all over, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thought it was great.
Yeah, they're very ferocious. But probably my favorite shot in the episode was this kind of zoom in on Joel and these. I love on the bottom right, just amazing acting from Pedro Pascal again. Like he's just absolutely bricking it. You know, Efren, did this have you kind of on the edge of your seat?
Yeah, I mean, during these scenes when they're shooting at these clickers, I'm gonna say, okay, guns don't work on these creatures. I think they need like knives or machetes or flamethrowers or something else.
Bombs.
You know, doesn't work.
All of which are bombs. All of which are weapons in the game. Efren,
Okay.
But yeah, no. So you can shoot. They take a few extra hits because they like. I think the fungus is so overgrown. It's almost like armor-esque on them. Yeah, but like just the way he shines the light in its face, it's just so visceral, you know. Yeah, just incredible. I had a little laugh at this, Chris, and I'm sure you did as well. The way Joel steps on the glass.
Yeah,
yeah.
So because you know what's coming.
Yeah, it's just a little nod to again in the games. It's like typically if you're in an area with clickers, there's like glass on the floor, and if you step on it, it's something you have to kind of avoid.
It's throwing the bottles.
I really want a brick or a bottle thrown at some point in the.
Definitely, it has to happen.
Yeah.
I kind of thought that's what he was going to. Do you know when he unloaded his gun and he had his handful of kind of rounds? I kind of thought that's what he was going to do: chuck the rounds to make a noise and move on or something.
That would have actually been
would
have been a clever move, wouldn't it? Oh, he doesn't he does like kick something over.
He does, yeah. He breaks some glass somewhere, doesn't he? And that alerts it to the other side.
Like knocks a statue over or something to kind of to draw it away. But yeah, it's just the way they like snap at him and everything. It's there's a lot of kind of scuffles like this in the games.
So what exactly do the clickers do when they attack a human? They just bite them and just be infected, and that's it?
The most common kind of game over screen, Efren, is they'll bite into your neck and just rip a chunk out of you. So that's usually, but they like claw at you as well, and it's the clickers or bloaters, Chris. I don't know if you remember where that they literally rip your face off.
Is the bloat? I don't know. What did the bloaters do?
I think the bloater that rips, like literally just grabs Joel's face, just rips it.
Yeah, that's one. Yeah,
that's one of my favorite game over screens ever. Again, I think this bottom right shot. If you'd showed me this a year ago, I would have said that was a shot from the game. Like that kind of over the shoulder perspective. So fantastic action sequence. I think really like an amazing introduction to clickers. You know, I assume everybody's kind of in agreement there.
Yeah, superb.
Yeah, definitely. I thought it was hilarious that Ellie got bit again. Yeah, that really made me chuckle. Just like, I didn't shit my pants, you know. But if it was going to happen to one of us, just great. And again, just fantastic performance from Bella Ramsey here. So, what do you think of this shot? This is kind of one of the iconic ones from the video game.
This is the scene that made me chuckle when she says that in there was scary. This is wood.
Yeah. But it's directly taken from the game.
Oh
so
wow!
It's a very iconic sequence. I really love Anna Torv's performance in like kind of post the clicker fight. Did any of you get a sense that maybe she had been bitten or something was wrong?
Well, I knew she wasn't on the cover of the game, so I figured that her time was going to be limited anyway. So I wasn't expecting, and it's such a shame because she's such a great actress. I remember
Yeah.
watching her in the show Fringe, and
Yeah,
it was just
yeah.
amazing.
Yep.
See, I didn't like her in episode 1, but I really warmed to her in this episode. So I
You
was
turned
gutted
around on
when
it,
she
you
got
said?
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Gutted she
that's
was
good.
bitten.
Yeah.
In the
Efren-
so,
Go on.
sorry.
No, go on,
I
Luke.
was just going to say in the first episode when that little boy comes to the base at first, there's a sign on the wall that shows like how the infected times,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
where it's like a neck and head wound, they're like, oh yeah, you'll turn in like 10-15 minutes, but it seemed like she lasted a really long time before. the
It's
reveal.
more like shoulder, I think. So torso, she'd have like 2 to 8 hours, I think. Yeah. But, Chris, what do you think of Anna Torv's kind of casting as Tess? Because like it's a fan favorite character, and on the panel kind of last week there was a lot of kind of not I wouldn't say hatred, but like people weren't too keen on her. So like, do you feel like she did a good job?
Honestly, so far I've got no issues with any of the cast.
Yeah.
My initial kind of worries were just gone as soon as I watched the first episode. I like Anna Torv anywhere. Again, I liked her in Fringe. I loved Fringe back in the day when I watched that. So I knew she was a good actress anywhere. I don't tend to kind of nitpick with things like that when I'm watching shows and movies. I just let them do the thing, and if they hit the mark, and they hit the mark, and she's.
I think, to be fair, last week it wasn't the casting of the actor that people weren't keen on. It was the actual character.
Yeah.
I think me and Ben
warmed up to it more in this episode than the first.
Yeah. Some of that might be because you're like fighting alongside her in the game, so that's kind of another way of attaching you to her. She doesn't have like a huge role in it, but she's like a character a lot of people really love, and I personally think Anna Torv did a good job.
You see, sorry again, James. This is the beauty, and Luke might be the same in Efren. This is the beauty of coming into this not knowing anything about it, because I hadn't looked at the computer game, but I thought she was the main character. So a bit like, again, sorry to keep saying Walking Dead, but I liked the fact in some shows they're not afraid to kill off characters that you think are big name characters. Walking Dead did it all the time. Do you know what I mean? Big names would disappear in the front. So this felt really good to me. It was a bit of a surprise. So yeah, I liked that. Yeah,
that's fair. I think she did. I liked her in last week's episode. I saw why some people weren't too keen, but yeah, I think this episode she was absolutely amazing. So yeah, this is a very iconic kind of moment in the game where it's taken effectively word for word. Like, is everything you hope for? You can't deny that view. Jury's still out and everything. Any kind of thoughts on this scene? Because it's sort of kind of like. We've had one scene kind of where they have like a little bit of a nice conversation, but I think this one it's definitely a step forward.
It was his glance. It was his glance to the watch afterwards.
Yeah,
that's he's obviously looked out at this beautiful scene. He's with this little girl, and it's the look at the watch, because he's not looking to see what the time is. He's looking.
It's on the bottom right here as well. It's because she reminds him so much of Sarah, and that's kind of why he's been so reluctant to kind of have anything to do with her, at all. Funny enough, I actually missed that. You looked at the watch the first time I watched it. I don't know how, but I had to go back and say, did he look at the watch? And I was like,
frog in my throat at that point, because I got exactly the same as Luke. That kind of hit me in the feels a little bit, because I thought, it was a beautiful moment, to be honest. Really good.
Yeah. Efren, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I thought it was a sad scene. The minute he looked at his watch, I knew he was thinking about his daughter. So it was a sad scene. But I mean, I think it was a poignant scene also. I'm glad they put it in there. He's never going to forget his daughter. I mean,
yeah. Chris, are you a fan of how close the show is adapting certain scenes, or are you kind of more of a fan of like the new stuff in this?
Again, I don't really have an opinion on it, because I've given it. I'm going to give it its own merit for what it does, the show. I'm not going to try. I'm trying consciously to not compare it too much to the game.
Yeah.
I pick out moments, like you said, and you pick out the scenes that match the game, and you think, oh, that's cool. That's really cool. But I'm giving it its own merit. Like, I'm trying not to compare it to scenes and to the game itself. I'm trying to give it its own chance. I like the parts that give nods to the games. and I pick them up, and I think that's really good that they've done that. But I like the fact that they've changed certain things as well, and they've changed it well. The changes are to carry the story along, so I'm happy with it so far.
Yeah, I think any changes so far, for the most part, were necessary to make this into a television show. Or I can understand exactly why they made that decision. So yeah, and it's also unusual. I've never like the fan base. I'm in a lot of like Last of Us like Facebook groups and stuff, and the positivity around the show is really unprecedented. Like people aren't really having any issues with any changes that it's made, and that's something really, how sacred, people can get about like comic book characters, for example.
Yeah,
it's quite unusual.
I think it's because when you're playing the game, you're putting yourself into that character, whereas now you're just observing. And I think that's where the difference really does lie. I think so. People who have played the game in the past have a lot more of themselves in Joel, as opposed to someone who hasn't, and they're just following Joel's journey.
Yeah.
Hey, in video games, at the end of this game, does it always end the same, or are there different endings?
No, it's one ending. A lot of games do have multiple endings, but it ends the same way no matter what.
Okay.
Yeah. There is a point where it feels like it's gonna let you make a choice, but it doesn't. So we get to the kind of state house, and they find all the Fireflies dead. Again, it's taken directly out of the game. And Tess is sort of freaking out. And Joel's wondering why, and we find out that she is infected. So so he's all kind of saw this coming.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I was hoping she would stay longer. I know they're following the video game, but going back to The Walking Dead, certain people died in the comic book that didn't die in the TV series. So I really like this character. I was hoping she would stay a little bit longer.
Yeah. It feels like it was kind of the same thing with Sarah, wasn't it? Where it's like it was such a great performance and great character that it's like a shame it's gone so quickly.
That's I think my only kind of issue so far is that I think that it's forcefully rushed because it's only 9 episodes. So they're killing off some of these characters too soon to push along the relationship with Ellie and Joel, I think.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. It's moving at a clip. Like I was really surprised that the first episode like got so far into the game. Like I thought it would just be the outbreak for episode 1, leaving the quarantine zone in episode 2, and then this be at the end of episode 3. But yeah, it's moving quite quickly. I'm curious if like by the end of it we'll still feel that way, or maybe it's something that could have used an extra 3 or 4 episodes.
So my biggest problem with The Walking Dead and why I fell out of love with it was because they didn't follow the source material. And I felt like a lot of really great stories were being wasted. And so that's where my problem with The Walking Dead occurred. But then the spin-off shows that came out of it, I was a lot more on board with because they were new stories. So as fans of the video game, I want to just ask you guys, if they do rear off into other directions with this show, are you going to be okay with that, or do you want it to be an exact play for play of the video game?
I don't. If they do carry it on, I'm happy with this first season kind of being a nod to the games. If the writing and the acting stays quality, I'm happy with it to go in a different direction.
Because it won't be long, right, until they surpass the material.
Well, Neil Druckmann, who is one of the creators of the show and the games, said word for word, to quote him, he said, "We're not going to Game of Thrones this." So he said that we're not going past where the games end. Now, I think it's entirely possible that in the time this show is made, that they make a third game, to continue the story. So that's entirely possible.
I mean, I think I hear what he's saying, James, but this has been already a massive success. So they'll be throwing money. So that might be his stance at the moment, but when they're going to offer him $1 billion contract, I would imagine he'll change his mind pretty quickly. Just to come on to Luke's point, I think that's a really good question, because we've talked previously on lots of shows, haven't we, about the dangers of being a fan of a material and getting upset when it strays away from it. And I guess my view on this is I don't know the source material. This is just a well-written show. And whether it's aligned with the game or not, for me, I don't care because it's a good show. I think it's worse if you're a fan of the show and they produce something crap. I would imagine this is much easier to swallow if it
Uncharted.
But I would imagine even if this was to stray away from the video game, it's sufficiently good and entertaining to be a bit more acceptable than if it strayed away in a negative way. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I 100% agree. Like, I think if it did veer off in another direction, it would maintain the quality of it.
Would you like to see other stories? I mean, because I know I would. Would you like to see other spin-off stories with completely different characters but set in this world?
I wanted this show originally to be that. And I basically started my channel with a video about that. It's called "Why HBO's The Last of Us Doesn't Need Joel and Ellie." So I would love to take the kind of fundamentals of the approach to the story that this kind of series takes and apply that to new characters. I'd absolutely love that. Yeah. So back to the show. Anyway, we get this kind of reveal that Tess is infected, and again, line for line from the games, the oops, our look had to run out at some point. I feel like the show, Chris, I don't know if this stood out to you, highlighted Tess, like the cure being really important to Tess more in this than in the game. Did you feel that way?
Yeah, like, again, I think that's more to do with pushing along the narrative and the story.
Yeah.
And maybe she's kind of trying to get Joel more invested in the relationship, because when she was bitten, obviously she changed a lot more, didn't she, towards Ellie, and she's kind of like, stop being so fucking negative to Joel, basically, and take it as a positive and a win and things like that. Like, she's trying to get him on board with Ellie more. So I think that's why, again, that I think they changed it and they sped up the pacing and things like that with her to push it along.
Yeah, I also think, and I'll dance around how I say this, but like, this kind of adds another layer to something later on in the story. But that's all I'll say about that. So Tess kind of begs Joel to take Ellie to Bill and Frank's. A little bit different in the game. It's Tommy's. So Joel, I mentioned this last week that Joel's not initially looking for Tommy in the game. So this is kind of his motivation to get there. And here they changed it to Bill and Frank's. So Bill and Frank's were mentioned in last week's episode. You remember the radio? The 80s song that was playing through it. So that's those characters. And she mentions setting everything right. So there's kind of a little reference to, kind of a shady past with the two of them. And then here we see this whole kind of new mechanic with the infected in action. I get sort of like almost like a supernatural vibe from the way this kind of works. Did anyone else kind of think that?
Supernatural.
Like, it doesn't really feel like something that is like biological, Like I don't think they're going supernatural, but like I got that kind of like it felt a bit like out of this world.
They were saying that all the fungus is all beneath the ground, wasn't it? So everything's connected to it, and it sprouts up at different places. So to me it makes sense, and
me too.
It's also, it really shows how fast the world could fall when this happens, because if you are attacked and everything knows you're there, then that obviously explains it and how it could happen so rapidly.
That's a good point, actually. I didn't think of that. Yeah, it's an interesting mechanic. I'm curious to see how it kind of factors in later on. But yeah, it's a cool visual. I think the way the kind of cordyceps comes up and grabs onto his hand, and you see the other ones that do the same thing. It's really cool, I thought. So we get a kind of a big veer off here. So I'll just go through what happens in the game first, because I think we're going to talk for a few minutes about what happens in the show. But it's not actually infected that come for them in the game. It's Fedra soldiers.
Right.
And so Tess just kind of says, I'm bitten, so I'm just going to stay behind and kind of shoot at them and kind of let you kind of escape. And her death happens off screen. So you're just kind of running away and you hear gunshots. But they went in a different direction with the show, and so Tess is kind of setting up traps. Like she's gonna cause a big explosion. And I really love how like Ellie is so like I feel like she kind of you can tell she likes Tess more than Joel. So like she's not only reluctant to leave Tess, but like doesn't want to go with him on her own anyway. Like Joel's kind of ready to shoot her at the beginning of the show, you know. So the way she's saying like "get off me," I thought was good. So we got this like little Casanova guy looking at her. You know, he's like, "Ooh, hello," and he strays over and gives her a little smooch.
Yeah,
it felt very out of
weird,
place.
I didn't. This was the one bit for me that I didn't quite get why she was just standing there, and also not being negative, she's fannying on with that lighter, and there's like a box full of grenades lying at her feet, isn't there? Why didn't you just pick a grenade up?
I thought about this as well. I think one, she's like a bit in shock, like she's so scared. So I think that's one reason. I think if she reacts too much, like the thing will just claw her to death and she won't get to light the lighter. That's another reason, you know. Like
So I had a
get it.
theory that maybe she was actually frozen in place because of the fungus within her. You know, like they said that it sends stuff to your brain to make you do certain things and behave certain ways. And if it didn't want her to move,
yeah, because
like you'd be forced to stay there.
Like I think you get the vibe that like the other infected can tell she's infected, and that's not why he's just like gone clawing at her. But this is I don't really have a positive or negative opinion of this. I just thought it was interesting, you know. Ephraim, what did you think of this?
Well, I did notice that they were avoiding her, and I knew because she was infected already. And I think they probably did this scene because they wanted to give her a big send off, so to speak, you know. But I don't know, they were just kissing or something. You know, you couldn't. I think you should have like bit her or something, you know, instead of doing that.
Yeah. I think it's like for the sake of the gross out kind of again the kind of Cronenberg-y kind of body horror thing.
I kind of have to. I have to get my head and agree with try and agree with Luke, because up till now she's been portrayed as a real kind of, in my mind, badass character, and she's quite hard and quite, you know, the rest of it. So unless there's something else going on, this just felt a bit. I don't know. It felt out of kilter with everything that's gone before it. I felt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay, I think that's completely fair. Chris, what do you think of this? Like, do you think this is an improvement? Because it's definitely the thing everyone's talking about. Like clickers and this scene is like the two kind of takeaways from this episode. Do you think this is like an improvement or a more interesting way of doing this scene?
Like initially for me, I'd have picked up grenades. I don't know why they didn't pick up a handful of grenades. And she didn't just throw that when they ran in. But since Luke mentioned it, it makes a bit more sense that it would be the fungus kind of infecting her brain, maybe, and that, like kind of binding with her more, because they could sense that she's infected. That would make a lot more sense. But yeah, it's a bit weird.
Yeah,
it's just, like it's a bit more of a gross out scene, isn't it? I think more than anything.
Yeah, definitely. It's like it's horrifying. Like you have to give them credit for that. And I think I could imagine like the because the what's kind of out of their mouth aren't a thing in the game. This visual could potentially be a reason behind that decision. You know, they just wanted this scene to happen. But yeah, I think it was. I don't like love it. I don't hate it. I just thought it was like, oh, interesting. You know.
Yeah. So could this clicker see her? Because the other one couldn't. Because he stopped.
This isn't a clicker. It's not. He's not quite that far along yet. Ephraim. This is just a regular infected.
Gotcha.
So clickers are just the ones with like huge growths on their head that like have no eyes. You know, the teeth are kind of showing. You know, very, very, very strange, but like an interesting way to cap off the episode. You know, so she gets the lighter lid and blows up, and we get kind of some great acting again from Pedro and Bella here. And the kind of sadness on their face is really kind of striking, and we end with this beautiful shot, I think, of Ellie just kind of standing there with the building burning in the background. Yeah, how did you feel about this like final shot? Does anyone have any kind of thoughts on this?
I loved it. That was a great shot, perfect ending, I think, for the episode.
Yeah, definitely agree. So that is episode 2 of The Last of Us. So we'll just kind of go around, kind of any final thoughts. Did you think this was an improvement over last week? You know, any negatives, anything like that? So, Peter, we'll start with you.
I can't remember what I scored it last week. I think I scored it high.
Yeah.
But for me, this was marked. I enjoyed last week's thoroughly, but for me, this was like a massive step forward. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I didn't take my eyes away from it. It engaged us all the way through. It had that kind of atmosphere that I was really enjoying. Even the bit with just my only gripe is that bit at the end with the kiss, and that's not even a negative. It was just a bit of a weird. Do you know what I mean? It was a bit like, oh, that's a bit odd.
That's how I feel.
Yeah. So I loved everything about this, and I think, as I said to you when he was off screen, this is fast becoming one of my favorite shows. Between this and Strange Things, I'm not sure. It's maybe a bit too early to say, but if it continues this pace, I think this is going to be an amazing series.
Yeah, definitely. I think it will maintain that kind of level of quality throughout, and there's some big moments coming. You know, Efren.
I said this previously. The first part of this episode, to me, was like so. You know, they have to show the post-apocalyptic world, how it is. And I've seen that so many times in other shows. But the second half, when they were, you know, when I knew the clickers were going to come, because you told me, just wait, that part really ramped it up for me. And I really enjoyed it a lot. And enjoying the ending, I go, okay, I'm really vested in this series, you know, and I can't wait to see the next ones, you know. And I'm glad they don't drop them. I think I mentioned it off camera, like Netflix does all at once. I like doing week by week. You know, anticipation, you know, when's the next one coming up, you know, so Sundays, you know, but I really enjoyed it so far.
Yeah. Awesome. Chris?
Again, I think it's this episode was, I don't want to say better than the first because they're both really good for different reasons, but this one really pushed along the narrative. That clicker introduction was phenomenal, pretty much almost perfect in my opinion. And I like the way it's kind of pushed along the kind of emotional journey of Ellie and Joel as well. Would have been a 10 out of 10 if she'd have jumped on a raft and he'd have pushed around the water. But 9 out of 10, sadly. But yeah.
Maybe episode 3. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. And Luke?
Yeah, so pretty much what the others are saying, really. It's a great continuation. I don't think any episode is particularly better than the other. They're different in their own ways and both equally as good. So I'm just looking forward to seeing what we get next.
I have one more question. When they get infected and when they start turning, are they dead, or is still part of them alive?
No, they're fully alive. Yeah, so I would say they're more like zombie adjacent. Like they're not exactly zombies because they don't eat people. They're fully alive. You know, yeah. So that's effective. But for me,
but when they're alive, they don't have any emotions like we do, right? They're just like you said, zombie adjacent. They're not like they don't know what they're being controlled.
They're just hosts to the fungus, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
They get horny though, apparently.
Yeah.
Judging from the hand of this episode, Papa wants a smooch.
Yeah.
I mean, James, just sorry, mate. Just before you do your summary, I guess what I just wanted to say, you mentioned last week that there'd been talk of this being a movie at some point. Yeah. I'm so pleased it wasn't, because this is what last week was an hour and a half. This week's an hour. So that's 2.5 hours, and I don't feel there's anything I would cut from it so far. Yeah. I feel like I'm getting a rich story, whereas with an hour and a half movie, you would have had to have trimmed this right down.
You would have had a 5-minute outbreak and 10 minutes in the quarantine zone, and you know this would be 20 minutes into the movie at this stage. You know, so
you need the journey, don't you? I think you need the journey for these characters, particularly.
To care about them.
You need to care about them because it's the main point of the game is the people, I think.
Yeah, and I also just think HBO is a really good place to put this. I think that's, if I was to pick who would produce this show, I would have gone HBO. You know, so I'm quite happy. For me, this episode, I think, you know, it's not quite as story focused. It's a bit more spectacle. But I think it was fantastic. Like clickers were the thing I was most excited out of this show to see. I think they've absolutely nailed it. Yeah, I mean, really, I don't have much comparison. I think I still would lean towards last week for me because I think that had a more of an emotional kick. But yeah, no, I think that this is a phenomenal kind of showcase of the infected and what the kind of world outside is. And I love these little moments that Joe and Ellie have together. And I think the chemistry is there. This show's really capturing what makes The Last of Us special, I think. And we're gonna, I think, continue seeing that as the weeks go on.
Hey, when this game first came out, did you guys jump at it right away? Did you know it was going to be a good video game?
Yeah.
Or did you get into it afterwards?
It's the company that made Uncharted, Efren, and at the time I was a huge Uncharted fan, so I got this day one. I was really stoked for it.
Naughty Dog are just everything that touches gold.
Yeah. I mean, the borderline obsessed. The wall I am facing right now is a shrine to Naughty Dog games. Like I've Uncharted and Last of Us stuff everywhere, Yeah. So yeah, that's our review for episode 2. We will be back next week to discuss episode 3, where we'll be meeting Nick Offerman's Bill. A lot of buzz around this episode. This is kind of being hailed as reviewers have seen all of them, and this is the one that people are saying is the standout kind of episode. So I'm really excited to see it. So we'll be back next Wednesday at 8 o'clock at the same time. Peter, you want to let people know what you got up on your channel?
So I've got a few shorts out, putting a few videos out. This is my most recent video, I think. This is the Liverpool Comic Con trip. Myself, Ben, James, and Simon went on. Interesting convention, that one. James had some experience queuing for people and things, but an interesting one, that. So that's my latest video. And then live shows. I do a live show on my channel every Monday night at 8 o'clock with a varying menu of different shows. Each week something different. This week we did our first art show, Geeky Art Attack, which went very well. So go check the rating out of that. Next Monday we're doing a spotlight show on Batman. So looking at the history of the character, his appearance in media, and what merchandise is out there, and then talking about our favourite Batman stories. So yeah, should be fun.
Yeah, I'm always excited for like the debut episodes of some of these kind of these shows, So I'm looking forward to this one to see how it goes. Yeah. Efren, we had a little fun last night.
Yeah, you guys went on my channel yesterday. I had a big unboxing. I did 64 encapsulated books, and I had to have you guys on with me, man, in case I messed up. So I was so thankful you guys came on with me, man. It was loads of fun, And that's anybody's looking at this picture. That's the convention center where Comic-Con takes place.
Yeah. Just across from your house, isn't it?
Just across from my house.
Awesome. Yeah. And then you got this.
I do a quick short every week. It's a minute. I just do that comic book read of the week. I just pick a comic book that I've been reading and why I enjoy it, basically. And I show pictures of the book.
Awesome. All right.
Yeah.
Luke.
Yeah. So I kind of changed my schedule a bit on YouTube. I used to do every week. Now I just kind of do as and when I can. But yeah, I'm really excited about these proton packs that everyone's been getting, these HasLab packs and everything. Now, I've actually got a custom, which is a piece that I actually bought from our good friend, Mr. Attention Seeking Geek himself. And obviously he's now upgraded to this HasLab pack. But I just really like Ghostbusters, and I wanted my kids to enjoy it too. So I've been looking at these more lower budget packs for the children. And so this is just a video just exploring that and seeing if it was the best proton pack for your money on the market.
Nice. That sounds good, man. And then you got something coming up as well.
Yeah, and then this is over on Go Collect. So for anyone who doesn't know, I now write for Go Collect, and this is actually my 20th article. Every 10 or so articles, I've kind of started just doing a little nod to the UK scene. And this is exploring Alan Class Comics, which is a company that basically reprinted all of those old classics back in the day. So if you've got some time, head on over to Go Collect and check that out.
Very cool. And Chris, you got a video out or coming up at the moment?
It's already out. I released it 5 or 6 days ago, I think. I unboxed one of my personal grails for my comic collection. So I've been trying to get this one for about a year. Finally got around to picking it up. So that's just a quick unboxing and showing of one of my personal grails. and I'm working on a top 10, an annual top 10 of my favorite comics as well in the collection. So that'll be out probably in a few days.
Awesome.
Chris,
All right.
Chris, did you challenge someone to do something on your? I forgot to do it. What did you ask her to do?
Oh yeah, it was I think just top 5 items in general, like comics or statues, anything that collectible really. Just a top 5 of your personal favorites and why.
Just
So
5
well,
times that. Is it?
yeah. Thanks, Pete.
I'll do that.
Don't worry about it.
Awesome. So, guys, you can check out everybody's channels in the description. Have the links down there for them. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Firefly Chats. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And don't forget, when you're lost in the darkness, look for the light, endure and survive. And I'll see you next time.